Much of the appeal of my most popular videos comes from me playing the part of the straight man or the second banana, someone who not overtly or unwittingly sets up the punchlines for other people's jokes. And in some ways it's become a double effect, because I think in some cases people are making comments that could be taken as punchlines to jokes without them realizing it or without other people realizing it. There's a basic mechanism in which several people are commenting on me as if I'm singing in another context, or as if I'm in another art form in which the performers metaphorically sing or play their bodies like instruments. These usually have streaming broadcasts where people give tips in exchange for the performers doing certain things which metaphorically might be considered to lead to them hitting their money notes. They can't be talked about too directly in those forums, I guess, because the performer gets out of the zone if they get too many negative comments. So they tend to ban or silence people, or they don't engage in debate because they don't want that to interrupt the flow of money, which can be quite considerable for top people on these sites, so high that someone doing that type of performance could get more in a single tip than I've gotten in all my years on YouTube. But this shuts down a key form of debate which I think should be going on. And if you wanted to make a complaint that these people are shutting debate, it would be absolutely right. Much more so than making the same complaint in my comment section, where you can make the complaint. At least I might not have time to respond to all of them, or keep going back and forth with one commenter, but you can at least make the comment. Now, this is a form of expression which relies on, I guess, a sort of silence in viewers, because they want only the ones who will pay, so they'll shut out the commenters who don't pay, and the ones who aren't participating, metaphorically singing along or strumming along from home as they watch the broadcast. And this is not something that encourages critical thinking and analysis of the meaning of what's going on. So there's no place to comment really directly on this sort of thing, because the comments aren't stored in the streaming. You can't go back and say, the performer made me think about this and I want to talk about it more. So what is missing, and what is made in the comment section of my videos, which never, as far as I know, doesn't show up in the comment sections of this other art forum, are comments like, "You're doing it wrong. You're using too much tension to hit your money note. You're clenching muscles that don't need to be clenched. You have a lot of tension in your facial expression, pained or strained, or you're holding your breath a lot and using more breath than is necessary." Now, what is really the irony and the humor in this is that if people took my comments and they placed them in the comment section of these other performance artists, they would be absolutely right. We have virtually no, in that art form, no demonstration of what proper technique for reaching your money note by relaxation is. Because if the people used relaxation techniques to get the same money note effect, they probably wouldn't get paid nearly as much. They're putting on a show. There has to be movement, there has to be some drama, there has to be some noise, thrashing about, and maybe a hint of a little bit of pain in some cases, because that's the established convention for getting the most money, and they're there, for the most part, to make the most money. But it eliminates this discussion of this entire control mechanism in our society and how we deal with it. In the forms of audio, which is supposedly relaxes the listener and puts them into the state where they can hit their metaphorical money note without using their hands, HFO it's called, on sites like YouTube, places like Shibby Says, you have the hypnosis being done by the speaker, and this is supposed to relax the person and put them into the state where they don't need to do all this this clenching and so on. But in the case of Shibby Says, she's got an actual video that's a setup to make the other audio set up to make the other audios work better, which is actually called clench. So it's supposedly a relaxation tape, but it takes away the need to use hands, but it puts right back the tension that was supposed to be relieved in the first place. So people who've been made tense by the way they're treated by teachers at some point in their life and have this reflected in restrictions and difficulties in their ability to relax and feel pleasure, go to somebody who's supposed to relieve that condition, but is just another teacher who in a way is just reintroducing the tension that they had in the beginning, just doing it mentally, so it's embedded in the brain rather than in the muscles. And this is the problem that you often see, in that people think teaching will give you everything that you want, when in fact, I think vocally at least, it probably removes most people's abilities to be relaxed and get enjoyment out of a simple action. And this is done long before puberty. I think most people lose their abilities to hit these high notes in like 6th octave or so. They start out being able to do it as children, and they lose it well before puberty, when in men's cases at least the voice is supposed to change and the vocal cords are lengthening. People lose the ability to hit these notes for the most part before it should be happening physiologically. I think they're losing it psychologically before they should be losing the ability physiologically. And this sets them up for the control matrix, as I would see it, because they've lost their one main method of feeling good. They try to replace it with another one at puberty, but that method, the way they're taught, is full of tension. It's full of tightening up, holding the breath, struggling to get to the final money note. And this means that it's still being used as the basis for a lot of things that you hear in hypnosis tapes, which is control, mentally conditioning the person to be addicted to the user's voice, or enslaving the listener also. Ultimately, some of these fantasies are just like straight mind control, MK Ultra recruiting fantasies. In some, if you look around long enough, they're actually out there. So in order to counteract this, we have very little discussion on how to get the relaxation effect rather than the tension effect. And it's so displaced and sublimated and diverted from the original topic of discussion that people don't know what they're actually talking about in some cases, or what they're really trying to address when they come after me for my vocal technique, because they simply don't have any other place to discuss it. And I would say that although it's true that there are some muscles you want to relax if you want to have a certain singing technique, you never get away from using your muscles entirely, because you still have to use your stomach, all the muscles in the sides and the center of your stomach to force the breath out, or at least to support the breath, as they call it. And then you've got to use some muscles in your vocal cords, and then you've got to rearrange your mouth and your pharynx and so on to make the resonance. So that's not a completely appropriate metaphor for the other means of relaxation, even though the loss of ability to vocalize properly could be the underlying cause of not learning techniques later on in life that would help relax. And this is especially sad because the performers in some cases are doing this webcam stuff because they have high levels of anxiety, because they have developmental disorders or mental disorders that prevent them from holding a job. So they're more or less forced into this type of employment. But they're taught to engage in it in a way that will only perpetuate their disorders.